What's up, riders? Coach Craig Householder from Holistic Integrated Training, and today I'm back with part 2 in our series on the dreaded forearm pump. Today I'm going to teach you how to take step 1, controlled articular rotations, what we covered in the last video. If you haven't seen it, go ahead, take a step back and check that one out. Today I'm going to show you how you can use controlled articular rotations as an assessment tool to kind of figure out what's going on in your wrists, and then in later videos I'll show you how to address those concerns. So one way that I really love to assess the wrist with cars is to take my cell phone, and I'm just going to put my arm face up, palm up toward the ceiling. I'll take my phone and I'm going to lay it on my forearm, and what this does essentially, it's going to enable you to do your cars without putting your elbow in, without leaking any motion from your elbow. So it keeps us really nice and honest. The other thing I want you to do is try to keep your fingers perfectly straight. You'll notice that if you don't move so well, you'll start to see cupping of the fingers. So what I want you to do is really work those fingers nice and straight, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go around our controlled articular rotation and trying to do the biggest circle that we can do. I want you to pay attention to two important directions for mountain biking. One is wrist extension, or pulling my fingers back into the top of my forearm, and the other one is wrist flexion, being able to pull my fingers into this underside of my forearm. So let's look at wrist extension, because I can totally see that I have a limitation going on there. So I'm having a hard time getting my fingers back here and making a 90-degree angle. That's pretty important, right? We see that in push-up positions. Maybe you're in a push-up position and your wrist hurt, or maybe you're in your quadruped and wrist hurt. But you see, I don't have 90 degrees of active wrist extension. So the next step is to just dig a little bit deeper and try to figure out, is this a passive range of motion problem or an active range of motion problem? So passive range of motion is how far I can take using an outside force, say my other hand, and actually move that wrist into extension. And you see, like, I almost get to 90, but not quite. And then I know from doing my cars that I definitely have an active range of motion problem. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that we're looking for a goal to have our active range of motion be about 85% of our passive range of motion. So if I wanted 90 degrees with this wrist, I would actually need just a little bit more than that to be able to match it. So I can analyze my wrist and I know that I have a passive range of motion and an active range of motion problem. And we'll cover how to fix that in subsequent videos. Wrist flexion is this direction. And you see, I do pretty good here. So if I try to go passive, I can move it a few more degrees, but pretty much my active wrist flexion, and that's without moving those fingers around, pretty much is close to matching my active wrist extension, or I'm sorry, my passive wrist flexion. Okay, so that's Coach Craig Householder from Holistic Integrated Training, diving a little bit deeper into forearm pump and some of the mobility reasons why you might be experiencing. If you did do these little checks today and you noticed that, hey, I have a passive range of motion or an active range of motion deficit, check us out in subsequent videos where we're going to teach you how to correct that. Have a great day and get out there and ride.